Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here, and welcome to another review. And now we're taking a look at Wells and Fargo, which is a side-scrolling Wild West shoot 'em up in which you're on a horse and cart, and if you've got two players, there's the option of either sequential or simultaneous, and one person plays and in the latter, one person plays the driver, and the other person plays the man on top shooting. If you're playing by yourself or sequential two-player, then you have to manually switch between the two. Now, this is part of a compilation called Action Countdown. The original game was by Spanish software house TopoSoft, like the Colosseum game. In fact, Colosseum originally came to the UK on that same compilation tape, as well as being released separately, from what I can make out. But enough for that. So, keyboard, that's fine. The first thing you notice is nice use of colour, and oh dear, I've died already. And the graphics are really quite nice as well. Obviously, the ink colour throughout is black to avoid colour clash issues. Oh dear, now my driver got shot. If either one of you gets shot, you lose a life. And the lives are in the top left corner. I've got 6 left now. Oh, for God's sake. It's another of those games where you get absolutely no invulnerability upon respawning. Oh, for God's sake. Right. I mean, while I can by and large see what's going on, one big problem that I have is that it has the same problem as Tomcat, in that the bullets are quite hard to see. I mean, when they're against the plain yellow of the sand, it's not so bad, but when it's up against that background, it's really quite hard to see. And you can sometimes quite frequently be wondering what exactly killed you at any one point. I have to admit, when I was looking up the instructions for this, I could only find them in Spanish, so I had to do a bit of translation, as my knowledge of Spanish isn't exactly immense. Oh, God. But even though that one said I had to manually switch between the two, when I'm actually looking at this English version, I'm sort of wondering whether that's, for God's sake, whether that's actually the case. Oh, now I can't shoot at all. Oh, now I haven't. When you've got when you're on your last life, you've only got one man, the other man's dead. You are death. Try again. You are death. It's you are dead. Oh dear. I'll give it another go, just for the giggles and. But now I'm playing this anglicised version. It does seem as if I'm controlling both people at the same time, to a certain extent, because I'm both controlling the cart and the man that's actually on top. And if you hold down the fire button, you can actually duck down. The problem is that takes about a second to register, so it's not exactly ideal. So in this anglicised version, it seems like the switching of characters only takes any kind of precedence if you're on your very last life and you haven't got enough to have one person on top of the carriage and another person driving. Oh, for God's sake! Again, I get killed because there's no invulnerability upon respawn. Oh, I can't see what's killing me half the time. Such a shame, because those are really nice graphics for the Spectrum. And the attribute clash isn't unbearable. The whatever sprite's happening just takes on the colour of the background, which isn't that unusual for a Spectrum game with the way which applies colour in the way that this has been done. Why am I going to hit them? They're not in the right place. Oh God! Oh, my driver's dead again. This really isn't very good. I'm wondering whether it might have used the same sort of game engine as Colosseum to a certain extent. The problem is that worked because it didn't have the same problem with having to worry about bullets that are really hard to see. This one does, unfortunately. The galloping sound effect's not too bad. Horses animation's okay. This can quite often be a challenge. It's not the best horse animation I've seen on the Spectrum. I mean, for example, the horse animation in Back to the Future Part 3 is better than that, but then the horses were bigger. The horse was bigger in that. I mean, it's passable for what's going on, but it's not the best horse animation I've seen. Right, last man now. I've only got to get them up there. Oh God, I saw that bullet, but I couldn't do anything about it because of the distance between everything so short. I didn't have time to react. Oh God. Oh, that's quite handy to get on top. Right, back into the saddle. Well, not the saddle. Oh, for God's sake! You are death. Yeah. It's convinced me to get my Grim Reaper costume and scythe ready if I'm death. So that's Wells and Fargo by TopoSoft. Pretty rubbish game, really. Graphics are really nice. The nice use of colour. Unfortunately, that meant character by character square scrolling to avoid some mass colour bleed. But it's so focused on the action that you barely even notice that. The sound effects, the only real sound is the constant clippity clop of your horse's hoofs. Apart from that, there's not even a sound for your gun, which is kind of a shame. I mean, I know the Spectrum 48K had its sound limitations, it didn't have a dedicated sound chip, but it would have been nice if there could have been just something for a gunshot. Especially as that could have also given a clue as to whether or not another cowboy had fired, and you had to be more alert of the bullets, given that they're a bit hard to see. Or they can be, depending on where the cowboy that fired them happens to be when they fired it. Gameplay. It's really not very good, especially not for a game from 1988. As I've just mentioned, depending on where bullets are fired, they can be quite hard to see. I mean, when they're against the plainness of the sand of the road the road/track that you're riding on, it's okay. But when they're against the background, they can be a bit tricky to see, because they're like in that Tomcat game that I reviewed not so long ago. They're just a solid circle with no discernible detail to help them stand out against against backgrounds whenever that's an issue, and that makes the game a lot more problematic than it really needed to be. And the playing area is quite small, so even if you can see bullets, it's quite often nigh on impossible to actually avoid being hit. which in turn makes the game even more unfair. I expect it might be slightly more enjoyable if you've got a second player, because it means that one person can concentrate on the driving and the other on shooting. But I doubt that it would alleviate the problem. It's enough to stop those problems from being too problematic, especially as the actual gunner can't move apart from being able to duck. So that, to a certain extent, it'd still be very dependent on what the driver was doing as to whether the second player the gunning player could avoid bullets. So yeah, I'm going to give Wells and Fargo on the Spectrum 2 out of 10. It's really not very enjoyable at all, and you'll be lucky if you get particularly far in it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that review. Catch you on another one soon. Texie88 out.